Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 10th day of January. I'm losing it here. I'm too tired. 2025. Been up since 4:30 this morning, working in the barn, actually feeding horses. So this was an early start to the day for me today, but everyone there is doing well, and I'm going to bring on my buddies here for Off the Grid. How you guys doing?
Great.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Who needs sleep, right?
Yeah. It's overrated needing sleep. I literally was up at about 4:20 this morning, setting up the broadcast, getting things ready, and then hightailing it to the barn and I haven't even really had coffee yet this morning. So we're getting there. In the wintertime, when you take care of large animals, your workload increases substantially. So everything is more difficult when you got snow on the ground. That's all I got to say. So got up this morning, came skidding in here to bam, sit in the seat, and here we are.
Just say
Happy New Year, everyone. Have a healthy one.
Happy New Year. Happy
New Year.
Yeah, may we all have a wonderful year ahead of us. Did you guys Did you have a great season?
it was nice. It was very nice. We had a good time. Didn't get much done, but we're going to Florida soon, so
yeah, our lovebirds, our newlywed lovebirds there. So yeah.
We made it through our first New Year's. No family fights or anything.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Jeannie's dad's in the hospital, so she's heading over there to make sure he's okay.
I'm checking Mom. So I'm off for parent duty, but I just wanted to wish everyone a happy and healthy New Year and see you soon. Okay.
Very nice. We'll be praying for you and for your dad. Very nice. So this is what it is, guys. It's like this is one of those family things. We're all friends. We all know each other for quite a long time, actually. And so it's kind of a fun time for us to be able to get back together after the holiday season, which is awesome. So what are we talking about today, boys and girls? Besides the fact that Shawn's going to be bringing up the bug out bags and such. So not only do we have Dr. David, and we have a tech expert and a constitution and a grand jury expert on the show. Now we've got a guy that has actual survival skills to drop him off in the middle of absolutely BFE nowhere. And he's going to be able to figure it out no matter what the conditions are. So we're going to continue on with this, with getting everybody prepared, because I don't know about you guys, but this morning I got up and I have to tell you, I felt like I was standing on a knife blade. Like, you know what I mean? Where you're sitting there going, it just feels like there's something big brewing. I'm not buying anything they're saying about these wildfires or the fires in California. It's way too scripted. I'm not believing anything. I'm kind of wondering if they're burning out the bad guys, actually, because they're destroying evidence there of what they've done. That's a huge guess that I have going on here. I
have one comment with that, and I kind of felt the same. I'm looking at those pictures, on the news. I'm like, God, they just look AI or something. But I did text a friend of mine who lives in a very wealthy area. I don't know what it's called, and it has a beautiful mansion overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And he just replied back last night that his entire house is completely gone and everything in it burned to the ground. Like,
yeah, I think we're absolutely seeing reality that things are definitely burning. But what I'm questioning is who's behind it. And, and I guess my thought is that with that mayor having absolutely no words, she seems like she's just kind of like a little clueless patsy out there who is following orders. She doesn't strike me as somebody who has the brain trust there to be able to actually pull off anything either good or evil, because she seems out of her element. Doing the wrong thing, I'm going to tell you, she did the wrong thing, but I'm guessing it's because there's people way smarter than her up the chain that are directing her as what to do. Now, with that said, my guess is that they're trying to hide evidence. And unfortunately, we're in a war, and no war is ever clean. There's a lot of people who are innocent in any wartime situation who get used as pawns, who are hurt beyond belief, that just got caught up in the war that's going on around them. And that's what I guess I'm guessing is happening. I think they're burning it out, though, to hide evidence.
I think they just have a clear lack of blue roofs.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've been talking for some time about being prepared for any kind of emergency scenario, and here in Michigan we tend to think in terms of tornadoes or thunderstorms or winter ice storms and that kind of thing. We occasionally will see fires here, but they tend to be managed better. I don't think that's because the DNR manages it really well. Maybe we compare it. Our DNR is better than California's version, Forestry Service, but I think one of the lessons here is we compare. I've been thinking about the difference between the response in the media and by the government in North Carolina versus California, and I just posted again this morning. The death toll in California is 10 or in the tens, and in North Carolina, after the hurricane and the storm and the flooding, we're talking thousands still, and they're not even putting it in the news, as far as I know. So, but we have to be prepared for anything. We happen to be here in Michigan. We can think about how we would stay warm if a disaster happened this time of year. That's obvious. But we just don't know what's going to happen and where. And I think this California thing is kind of proving that out there. What is the risk? What is the biggest risk they have? Drought, fire.
Earthquakes.
Earthquakes is another big one, yeah. So
infiltrating by the drug gangs out there too, and all of the proximity to the border and such. Even though every state's a border state at this point in time, I mean, the whole state's been infiltrated and such. So I listened to a video this morning too of a guy that said, now I don't know if this is true or not. Of course, this is just one of those unvetted or unverified claims, but he said he was listening to people. There was a guy that apparently looked like he was shot, according to him, and was up in the mountains and heard some people up in the mountains talking about starting fires on every single hilltop. Now, we don't know if that's true or not. We can bring this forward, but truly we have to question everything. But
I think too there's a difference in the fire risk too between Michigan and California, in that Michigan, we don't currently have all of the waterways and all of the water supplies owned by basically one couple, like they do in California. And additionally, we have a lot more water here, both falling from the sky as well as, available on the ground to deal with firefighting on a local level.
Yeah, basically one couple owns the entire water supply, or most of it, for the state of California. And so it's very, very controlled, and it's a real problem. If you haven't looked into that, it's the same people that own, I believe it's Wonder, the corporation called Wonder, which is a lot of our food. So to really see how they've centralized our food, our water underneath these corporations, and see how this is happening. There's a new one that I think has come to mind here in Michigan, that we're seeing birds destroyed. Like, there's people on the ground that are talking about flocks of turkeys and such, that they're coming in and destroying them overnight. Small flocks too. It's a little disturbing, not the large flocks, but even the small flocks. And the involvement with the planning zones or planning commissions that are around. There's a company that's involved in doing a lot of the planning, which the planning commissions listen to. And there's some questionable activities with this company, including being a provider of corporate food for this area. So they're literally tying themselves into the zoning boards in order to hijack our zoning to stop people from producing their own food, getting rid of our food sources that are locally grown and such through their pretended legislation and regulation. And that's one of the other ways they're doing it. It's really pretty diabolically subversive.
Well, what other risks do you think we could really face here in Michigan, Donna? What other types of risks could you see happening besides power going down? That's another big one.
Communications are going to go down. It's going to be power, communications, and then one of the biggest things, and I think I've talked about this in the past, because I'm a prepper. You know, I've taught it. I've been a person who has, like, I home birthed my kids, homeschooled my kids. I foraged for food. I've done a lot of things that probably I've trained myself to go without food for like 3 days. And so, I mean, I can go a long time without eating. Ask the people that know me really well. They'll tell you I forget to eat because it's just not important to me in life. I eat because I have to eat, but it's not a priority. I think one of the biggest things that's going to be shocking to people is if we get in a situation where we do not have a way to get rid of waste. So if you don't have a way to get rid of waste and or to deal with that, that's a biggie. Another thing is dealing with personalities around us that are in a state of panic.
Yes.
I've also talked about that for quite a while and how to manage that. And it sounds really stupid, but people need their creature comforts in order to maintain sanity when they're used to a certain level of creature comforts and or things they're used to. If they lose those things, they're like totally panic. So if you have, like, say something that's some candy, some hard candy or something like that, something that just takes that raw edge off and overrides the brain's reaction. Okay, that's what you do in horse training. In horse training, you have an irrational animal of prey that sees everything as a threat. And so when you approach people the same way, because people and horses are just about the same. If I have to deal with a conflict mediation session that I'm in charge of or something, you watch how people react, and it's always they're just reactionary to something that really doesn't amount to anything generally. And so you got to get them past that physical reaction and override their brain's emotional reaction to things. And once you get past that, you can have everybody think clearly. That's another big thing. You got to have a plan on how you're going to manage the people around you, because honestly, this is another thing I've said for a long time. The biggest threat we have in America, it's not from those that are coming from the outside. It's going to be from people who go into crazy land over toilet paper and crap like that, pun intended, to cope with things they can't control. The human beings are absolutely addicted to control. Absolutely addicted to control. They feel out of control in an out of control world. And so they do things that are irrational, even things they think are going to save them. They will run right to their death. Horses do the same thing. It's exactly the same reaction. So all of those things, besides food and water, having food and water and such, but you have to be prepared for those things that you perhaps wouldn't envision happening, created by those people around you whom you love.
Yep.
I think that's a really valuable piece of advice that gets overlooked a lot, because we do, when you're doing preparation work, you do kind of tend to think about yourself and the people immediately around you and expect that they will be able to cope with things as well as you do.
Yeah.
And that is probably a good assumption to check.
Something I found interesting recently is that I tend to scroll through the Dish Network guide, and see what kind of movies are on, because they often go in groupings. And the other night there was Contagion, I Am Legend, War of the Worlds. There was another one about a pandemic scenario too, all in like one night.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because it's like, is somebody trying to send us, some training? But
they warned you.
In some of those movies, they do address that. So there's a way to kind of visualize how that would look. What is the mental state of people in that kind of environment? And in some of them, they really hit that panic pretty good. When people are told to evacuate, there's an environmental disaster ones too. So there was like the day after tomorrow, where there's a giant ice storm over the whole north of the United States, and the whole northern half, and everybody in the southern half was told to evacuate to Mexico within hours. And so it was like, yeah, this is not going to work. Of course, everybody panics. And in California, people panicked. They had roads getting blocked. And of course, this is allegedly, but this is what I saw, that bulldozers were moving cars out of the way after the fire had gone through, because people had to abandon their cars and go running, but then they had to open up the roads for more services to go through. So, but that's what you do. You panic and you get out of your car and you run. What if you can't run?
Quick question here, Shawn. What's your TikTok account?
My TikTok account?
No. I'm sorry. Your Twitter account.
Oh, my Twitter account. So it's HomeSec Consult.
Wasn't coming up. Got it. Okay. Back to the program.
Yeah. So Karen, what you're saying is that everyone needs a bulldozer.
Well, and actually, people with motorcycles, and sports bikes. If you've got a motorcycle or a sports bike or a horse, you're likely to do better. But horses can panic too, so you have to have, one of Donna's specially trained horses, and not necessarily a rescue horse that panics at the first sight of danger. You got to have a really good, stable horse.
Yeah,
that can haul stuff and people.
You don't want to get on a new horse either. You want that horse to know you, that you've had enough time bonding, so that horse trusts you. If you tell him to run through fire, that horse is going to run through, just about fire. You saw those people walking the horses out of California and such. Notice how calm those horses were.
Yeah.
The horses were calm because of the people that were around them. Just like horses, when you have one calm person in a scenario, it decelerates the whole thing. So to everybody that's out there that's stuck with BNN and off the grid long enough, you're probably special individuals called by God for this time. Keep your calm on, no matter what happens. You're going to probably be the ones that hold it together when everybody else is absolutely losing their minds.
This is kind of interesting. I decided to go ahead and watch the first episode of a show. What's it called? Can't remember what it's called, but it's like Navy SEALs sort of training, special forces, I think it's what it's called. But they take 16 people from entertainment and sports. So these are people who at one point in their career were famous, well known. Maybe they've aged a little bit, and maybe they're not as much in the spotlight, and they're looking to get back into it, or maybe they're just really wanting to find out who they are and what their inner strengths are and challenge themselves. Stephen Baldwin didn't make it through the first day. He was good. It was interesting because he was good if it was a flashy exercise in front of the cameras, but when it came to simple endurance of cold, he started to panic. But there's a gymnast on there, and she panicked a few times, and it wasn't because of the situation, it was because her mental emotional state. And what finally came out when they got her away from everybody and talked to her, she was one of the victims of the sexual assault things going on in the gymnastics. And so that she was in the gym world from the age of 4 to 18 when she retired. And I don't know how old she is now, but she's been carrying that trauma ever since then, and it's finally coming out in a totally different situation. And it causes her to just go into a panic attack is what's happening. She freezes up. She can't think. There's another woman that freezes. She can't think. She cannot move. And nothing makes any sense to her. And she also failed within the first couple of days, I think, because she just said, "Oh, my back hurts. I can't do this," you know. And so people will do that. They'll freeze, or they will incapacitate themselves, whether they're really physically capable or not. She could be really strong without the mental state of, I'm going to fail. You know, if you doubt yourself that much, you can't help other people. And the other thing that's interesting about this is that immediately there are certain people who start to serve as leaders. You can see them coaching other people. They pick, some of the guys will take a girl under their wing and be like, "I'm here for you. I got you." They just have a tendency to find somebody who's more vulnerable than they are and go right up to them and put them under their wing and say, "We're going to make it together." And these are people who are strangers to each other. That was a really good thing to see in that kind of situation.
What's the show called?
I think it's called Special Forces.
Okay.
I've seen it before. It's kind of entertaining, and there's serious exercises. They will scare the crap out of you if you've never done anything like that before. Things like, you got to jump from a boat to a helicopter and then climb aboard the helicopter. And if you fall in the water, you're moving fast. It's not going to feel good.
This is for you, Karen. This is for you.
Thanks.
See if
might need to unmute it.
I don't think we're muted. Are we muted? Oh, yep. There you go. Sorry.
Still no sound.
Can you hear it now or not?
No.
Really? Oh my goodness. Oh well.
No.
Well, it's for you. You're gonna have to look it up. Sorry.
Yeah. Just share the link on Telegram.
Oh, I'll put the link on Telegram. There you go.
I had I think one of my best memes of the year yesterday.
That was funny.
I don't know if we're gonna talk about the contents of the bug out bag, but something just came to mind from my friend's message to me yesterday, that the last line was, he didn't have time to pack. And this guy's got a collection worth millions of rock and roll memorabilia. But one thing that people probably overlook when creating a bug out bag is, important papers and stuff like that you want to take, because, hey, you probably want to have proof that, this is your bank account, that this is your home mortgage, just to take important papers and keep them somewhere where you can take them with you in the bug out bag. It's not just all survival stuff. You have to think about what possibly could go wrong after everything is settled down.
On War of the Worlds, Tom Cruise character tells his son, "We have 60 seconds to get out of this house and go. Pack some food in this box." And they carry this box around with them everywhere they go for the next, hurried moments. And when they get to somewhere safe, he finally looks into the box, what's in it, and it's like a bottle of ketchup and a bottle of salad dressing, things like that. He goes, "That's all you had in your house."
It's fun. Well, Shawn, what's your thoughts on the bug out bag too? Besides, I like that, David, the identification and paper and important papers.
So, besides your IDs and any medical information that you have about yourself that's going to be used, if you find yourself in a situation where you need somebody to give you medical treatment, then you would need that medical papers, some kind of an ID bracelet or something. But as far as bug out bags go, there's one company that I absolutely trust. They actually sell their equipment to special forces and to a lot of guys like myself who we've gone to extensive trainings for this. But this is called BSO survival gear. And what's really cool is they actually have what they call the get you home bag. It's about maybe 2 pounds. It's got a strap and everything. You can put it on. It's got a water filtration kit. It's got your, it's got like a solar panel charger for your phone. There's a water filtration kit right here. This is one part of it. This is actually better than Life Straw. You get about 40 to 50,000 more gallon of waters through this. You've got your typical paracord. This is one of the best survival knives that's out there on the market today. This is actually made in Finland, I believe. It's called a Morcani, but
Shawn, can you tilt your camera down? Okay, I can see it now.
Okay, so this is, oops, if I pull this up, that's the name of the brand.
Can't see it. You're gonna have to spell it for us.
Okay, and then we have one of the most important things is a lot of times we tend to forget, like when you're in a bug out situation, and it's starting to get dark, right? And you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I need to find some kind of shelter, right? So first thing you're going to do is you're going to start to panic. But with this, you've got an actual guide that comes with it. And it has all of the pictures and instructions on how to step-by-step build shelter, build fire, how to source water. This has universally everything that you need just to get to the point of getting home. Now, this company does actually design and make every kind of bug out bag that you can think of, like medical bug out bags to if you're going to be gone for like 72 hours. We're talking like another one too is if you're gone for a long period extended of time. If you're somebody like me who's been, through the training, you've lived out in the woods for, weeks at a time, or if you're planning on, trekking on foot a great distance, then you're going to want their extended bug out bags. And one of the things, I have to say, like in my family, one of the things that we did for many years was we ran bug out drills just like we did with tornado drills or like fire drills, right? And the idea of the reason why I did that with my family to teach my children was because I wanted us to be out of the house, like Karen said, out, 30 seconds, want to be out and gone. So that means all of your bug out gear, you get your home bags, everything should already be in the trunk of your car or the back of your truck. And I think it's, there you go. Small get to home bag. this as far as quality goes, this is probably one of the top end I've ever seen, as far as the equipment itself. I bought a lot of equipment over the years. I've made my own bug out bags over the years. That cost me like extremely insane amount of money, and then I would take it out in the field and test everything and see if it actually holds up. And I've been disappointed a lot, but this one here in particular, I was actually pretty impressed. For the bang for your buck for quality, this is about as good as you're gonna get. So, but my family and I, we were practice bug out drills. The idea was that no matter what we're doing, where we are, we're in the car, and we are out of town or out of the city, within 30 minutes. Okay, so what we try to do is try to see how far in normal conditions can we get in 30 minutes. Then we have to think about all the other obstacles that we might, encounter. For example, number one, the information that we're getting might be delayed, and the government may say, "Oh, last minute, okay, I don't know, you got an army invasion coming your way, or there's a wildfire or something, right?" So now we have to leave, and we've got 2 million other people on the road. That's why it's really good to know the neck of your woods there, right? And what we've done is I've actually secured 8 different locations, and these are all small pieces of property that I bought really cheap. And what I did was I have a 50-gallon drum full of equipment, food, and supplies that I would bury into the ground. And then whenever we needed to go, we need to get to a bug out location based on where the threat's coming from. We assess that, and then we say, okay, we're out the door. When we leave, we're leaving with the intentions that we are never coming back to this house again. Okay. So that's why we kind of would like to, we try to duplicate everything that we have at the house, at least at one of those locations. So, and one of those locations, I have a little house there, and I have duplicates of everything. So if we lose everything here, I'm not worried about it. We got it there. So my wife is kind of a creature of comfort. So we have those things there. But once we are out of the house, we timed ourselves. We say, okay, how long does it take me to get out of town? How long does it take me to go 30 minutes, right? And so we kind of anticipate in a traffic jam or other problems, how long it's going to take you to get there. Well, thinking about this in terms, if the road is blocked because there's an accident and you've got 500,000 people behind them trying to get out of the cities, it's going to slow up and it's going to impede your travel time, right? So one of the things that we try to understand is how can we get the information quicker, get out of town quicker, like try to get ahead of the pack, right? And one of the things that we have to do is kind of figure out and assess what type of danger it is. And I always say, play it safe. If you have any doubts, then go. Just our kind of rule is that if it's really, really bad, but we know it's coming in this direction, we're not going to wait until the last minute like everybody else is. We just get in, we go. We don't tell any more. We're not going to call people. We're not going to tell people. We're going to get ourselves out first. And then
can I interrupt for a second? I have a question. Like, what situations would you recommend that somebody bug out versus hunkering down? Because I could see advantages for each, but I've never really thought about what kind of situation would you actually leave your primary place of survival?
That's a good question. Typically about 80% of the time, you're going to want to stay in your own home because your 4 walls are going to be your best defense. But in cases like say for example, like a wildfire, like you see in California, right? Right. I always say, if you invest in yourself a little bit, if you're in an area where you have a potentiality for, let's say, a tornado or wildfire or whatever, build a root cellar or a little mini bunker or something that's not attached to your home. And the reason why I say that is because if nothing does happen to your home and the threat has passed, you're not going to be 20 miles down the road trying to rough it out there, right? And you've got no four walls, so your security is constantly compromised by so many different elements. You've got the weather, you've got the people, you've got animals. So there's always that constant threat. But if you can manage to be able to stay in your own home for the most part, chances are you're going to fare a whole lot better. But if you get into a situation, say, let's say we got invaded by another country, for example, and you're listening to the ham radio, and the ham radio is telling you, kind of giving you an idea. Somebody's saying, okay, this is where they're going, this is the direction this is where they're at, and this is the direction they're going. And so you surmise, okay, it's probably not a good idea for me to stay here because eventually they're going to come here and I want to get ahead of it. So that might be a good reason to go.
So a quick note on that too, you brought up ham radio, and that is one of my favorite things about ham radio is during severe weather events, getting on there onto the weather nets, and you can hear exactly where the reports are coming from of severe weather, because people call it in as we've got this much wind or this size hail or whatever at the intersection of these two streets, and you know exactly where things are.
Yeah, a lot of the weather reporters, I did that voluntarily for years, and every time you see tornado coming or high winds or hail, whatever, and every time I give a report out, we always give our location and all that information. But in a time of a situation like, let's say, we got invaded by another country, this is where you want to get all the different channels. You can get them online. You can find the pictures and screenshot it or something. But they have all of the ham radio channels for the different the different offices of the federal government. We got like National Guard. You got one that's it kind of broadcasts out to anywhere if you're on whether you're land or sea. They have different channels for different agencies, right? So the idea is that you can go on there and you can listen, right? So if you hear, there's this activity going on, that activity, you're going to spend more time if trying to make a good decision is by listening to what other people are saying. Kind of like, you're in the hallway just listening. And the reason being is because oftentimes people are going to tell you what you need to hear over ham radios far better and far quicker than what you'll hear people saying on the internet. It could be, hours before you finally find a video, or, mainstream media is not going to tell you the truth about anything. So,
unless you get on BNN, of course.
What's that?
Unless Donna goes live on BNN.
Well, guys, guess what? Yeah, when I come on and say, well, guys, we're screwed.
And another thing too about the ham radio, and this is something that I hear too from people that get into getting a ham radio, and it bugs me to no end, is, I'm just going to get a ham radio, and if something bad happens, then I'll figure it out. No, that's why you want to get licensed now so that you have a call sign and you can get on there and start practicing now with being able to communicate with other people, so that if something happens, it's second nature to be able to pop that thing on and get in communication with other people. It's just like a firearm. You don't want to just, buy a firearm and a bunch of ammunition and have no idea what you're doing and say, well, if something happens, I'll figure it out. It's the same kind of thing. You want to be able to practice now so that you're proficient at it and it's second nature if something does happen.
Well, that brings me another point of what you were talking about, Shawn, when you were talking about practicing with your family. I remember there was one point when I was a kid, this is the only time I remember having any kind of practice. My parents got one of those chain ladders that could go out from a second-story window during a fire. It braces over the edge of the open window, and Dad put it in the window, and we all got an opportunity to climb out the window. As far as I remember, I don't remember if I did it or not for sure. I was probably 4 or 5 years old, but he made it interesting and safe and kind of fun, and it took a lot of that panic out of it. If we were to ever have needed it, we would have gone, okay, I've done this before. I trust Dad. I'm really scared, but I've done it before. And that concept of having done things before is a big one for me. When you get up against a comfort zone and it's something you've never done before, it's really scary. So, hey, everybody, something you can actually do this weekend is sit down and think about where you would go if you needed to get out of your house this very minute, this weekend. What would you need to take with you? And practice it. Take the whole family and get in the car and go somewhere and think about where would it be. If you're at school, if you're at work, can you go home, and is there a second and a third place that you would meet up with your family? We've done that. My husband knows what to do. If he can't drive his car somewhere, he has a way to get home to me, and he'll expect that I'm most likely going to be home because that's where I am most of the time. I'm not out and about working like he is. And I just know that he is prepared, so that takes that panic element out of it. And like we were talking earlier, that is half the battle, maybe more. If you've practiced it and you know, okay, my kids know what to do in this situation, I can focus on me and what I need to do to get to them. I know that they know what to do. And maybe they'll take a couple friends with them and help them to not panic. But that element of practice and planning removes a lot of panic, I think.
Yeah, it does. I mean, one of the things that I used to teach other people when we were doing plugging out exercises, survival skills. When it comes down to making good decisions, it's all about preparedness ahead of time, because at least you have something to stand on, and you can say, okay, well, we've been practicing this, and so what is the first thing we need to know? Okay, communication. All right, so what are we going to do for communication? Do we still have cell phones? Do we still have internet? Do we have all these things? And utilize what you have at your disposal. Then from there, you say, okay, well, if I leave my home, I know my safety is going to be compromised. Do I have a firearm? Am I proficient in it? Right. So these are like, write down all the questions that you need to ask yourself. Walk yourself through the step. Then go and practice each piece of that step. And then when you get to the point where when it does happen, you're not going to panic, like you said. If you have that one calm person in a house full of people that are flipping out, going crazy, and they see that you're calm, they're you're often going to be the target of lashing out at. But however, they're going to see you're calm, and then they're going to become calm, and then everybody's going to become calm, and then say, okay, what's the plan? Okay, this is the plan. This is what we do. It's really the number one thing about survival when it comes to that point. the number one mistake that's going to get people killed is when they panic. Is when they don't prepare, they panic. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 some years, and I still have a little bit of panic inside of me. You know, at times I might be kind of frustrated or say, well, I'm not getting, you know, enough information on this, you know, whatever this subject is, right? Or what if, you know, there's so many what ifs, but that's why you go through and put yourself through the training. Like, you know, Donna not eating for 3 days, right? I've been in situations before, like my wife and I, our house got flooded out twice in the same year. And the second one almost, you know, ended it all for us. But we managed to get back to our home, and the government didn't come and save us. Actually, the government did the opposite. They prevented people from coming and helping us. And so we had to build our own infrastructure, you know, and in turn, we ended up helping other people. But the initial shock is like, okay, what do you do? How do I get through this, you know? And when you come to realization nobody's going to come and save you, okay, everybody else is trying to save their own asses in this situation. When things start to calm down, and when people start to get that, you know, that get out of that panic mode, they start having solid ground to walk on. Then people are going to start to come together and say, okay, maybe we, you know, we could help each other out. You know, give each other aid and comfort and support, right? But in the initial phase, whenever you have to bug out, it's always a good idea to prepare and plan ahead of time for all the what ifs. So sit down and write, you know, in your area, say Michigan, you write down all the natural disasters you have in your area, okay? And then you think about two different types of scenarios. Okay, so nowadays you have an app. You can download a hotel app. You can put your credit card information into it, right? So if you have to bug out and it's 30 miles away, there's a hotel, you can, you know, one's driving, the other one's, you know, on the phone. You can order a room like that, whereas a lot of other people are going to be trying to call in. You're going to be able to get that room a lot quicker, because by the time you get there 30 miles later, all those rooms are going to be booked up, but that one room is going to be left open for you because you put a hold on it through your app, right? And then you have to think about other things too, like what happens if communications go down, which means is you're not going to have access to your money. You're not going to have access to bank. You're probably not going to have access to any kind of communication except what's on the ham radio. So whatever cash you have in your pocket, it may or may not have any value at that point. What's going to be of value is somebody who's got the four walls, you know, like 2 doors and 2 windows, right? So that's why it's a really good idea to prepare ahead of time. Other locations you're going to go to, family,
friends. I think friends too. You should know some friends in different areas and call each other and say, hey, if you're in trouble, I'm saving a space for you, and network with your friends and such, and so that you even have not, you know, you bought property, but a lot of people know other people in different areas, and to approach this situation ahead of time and offer them to come and be a help in a time of trouble is a good way to start too. You know, something else to your point that you said, Shawn, that I think this mental preparation is when you are the calm person in any situation and you haven't lost your mind. Remember, most people want others to commiserate with them. They want you to feel what they feel. They want you to feel the panic, the pain they feel. And so they will literally lash out at you in order to get a reaction. And they want to see you panic. They want to see you have that same, I'm going to call it what it is, weakened mindset. Expect it. Know that you're looking at someone who is perhaps much weaker than you are And this is just the reaction. And don't decide to just jump onto the crazy wagon with them. You don't, that is a comfort to people if they think that everybody else is as panicked and scared and what? Well, then they're validating their own craziness is what they're doing. And it's not helping for anyone.
That's really interesting.
But there's no guarantees of security that if you give in to somebody that's panicking and going crazy, let's just say some dude in my neighborhood decides he's freaking out because all the communication's down and infrastructure's falling apart, and there's the grocery stores they don't have any more food, and he starts freaking out. And you guys ever seen the movies? This is a really good example, but The Mist, where the people were inside the grocery store and there was that big mist coming outside, and there's that one crazy Christian lady. So she started using her religion as a way to, she was just like off the deep end. All of a sudden, all these other people started kind of listening to her. And what had happened was it ended up resulting in the death of two of those, or three of those military guys, because she was accusing them of being responsible for what was happening outside of the
paranoia sets in is what it is too, is paranoia.
Yeah. And paranoia is very infectious, and it's very, unfortunately, it's just something that people who don't master their chaos, they'll end up being swept up by the chaos.
Well, people are addicted to it. There's an addiction. There's an emotional addiction going on in the United States of America. If you don't get crazy, you just don't care. No, maybe if I just don't want to, participate in the craziness and the drama. And most of it goes back to justifying their discomfort and lack of control of the world. That's exactly what they're. When somebody wants you to commiserate with them, they're looking for justification.
Yeah.
This is interesting because on that Special Forces show, I noticed yesterday when I was watching it that all these people would get together after an exercise and they're exhausted, they're cold, they're wet, and they go, "Oh, well, that was bad." And then they start to talk about what they think is going to happen next, and it's all negative right away. Do you think we're done for the day? No, probably not. Are they going to make us wet again? I can't stand that cold weather. I can't make it if they do that. Well, yeah, they're probably going to put us back in the water. It was stuff like that, and they were all negative. And I wanted to join in them and say, knock it off.
Yeah, that's
stop with the negativity here, because you just don't know. And I guess I've been through a few of those kinds of exercises before. I went to a weekend where we were up against all kinds of physical challenges that are just meant to test you mentally, emotionally, like that. And I was feeling like I could have done any of those challenges. Whether I would have passed or failed, I don't know, but I wouldn't have been as weak-minded going into it, because I would have been the one saying, stop it. I remember a time when I was in college, we were going to do an exam. It was 2 exams, meant the whole grade of the year. So it was a lot of pressure. I studied really hard. It was Botany 500. Hated the class. Botany is not my element. This kid sits next to me in the hallway as we're preparing the last minute. I've got the Rocky soundtrack in my Walkman. And I'm listening to the Eye of the Tiger, and I'm bouncing around like I am ready to go in here because I needed to psych myself up. This kid sits next to me, and he grabs my shoulder, and he goes, "Oh," and he's all shaking. And I said, "Oh, get that off of me!" And I brushed my shoulder. That's true. One person can affect another person really quickly that way, and it puts you in a whole other state of mind.
One of the things I wanted to share real quick, now, Dr. David, you work in medical, right?
Yep.
Okay, so
he's in fact a doctor.
Oh, Nice. So one of the things that I've done over the years, I've got a library of books, right? I'm always looking to add a new skill set, to learn a new skill set, right? And 30 years ago, I was a paramedic for 2 years. So, and then it's been like 30 years. So it's like, okay, well, I remember, how to take a blood pressure. I remember doing CPR, first aid. I remember a lot of other things too. But it's like, what if I got shot, or somebody in my group got shot, right? Or what if they got a laceration? Okay, I'm trying to remember all the steps for how to take care of a laceration. So one of the things that I did was I decided, it's better to have a book on hand and go, okay, well, here's a step-by-step guide, and this is how you take care of it. And one thing I've learned is when we were living in our prior house, when we got flooded out, we had no utilities, right? So for the first 6 months we had, or I should say the first year, we didn't have any electricity. And so I spent a lot of time just reading a lot of books rather than being on my phone or on my computer, And so, because we'd have to take it down to the car and charge everything up. And while I was charging, I would read books. And I started collecting a lot of medical survival guidebooks because I always felt like, okay, I need to have some valuable information. So I'm not always going to remember everything. But I kind of wanted to share that with you because,
great. That's an important skill. It's one of the top skills. We've talked about that before, like to be able to take care of, in a survival situation, little tiny things, little cuts and lacerations can kill you, if you don't take care of them properly. So it's good that somebody in the group has some medical training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's another thing is taking an evaluation of the people around you and the skills and the expertise they have. Do you know somebody who's a nurse or a doctor that's in your area? Have you reached out to someone? And if you even don't know them, reach out to people, talk to them. You never know what you're going to find. And build your own network, but not just to save your own, CYA thing. The thing that really surprises me when I've talked to people about this is how often they will say, I'm just going to take what I need from whatever I need it, wherever I need it, and survive. To which I'm like, I don't think that's a good plan. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Way to get shot.
If you approach this in a way that is, how can I be the most helpful to the most amount of people? Number one, it's going to tell me that you're planning ahead of time. And you're not just thinking about me. Here comes the Toby Keith song. Me, what about me? What about, that song? It's like, what about a community-minded thing so that, this is unfortunate, but part of the brainwashing that we've had is take care of yourself. Just take care of yourself. You can do this. Let's all have a Rambo mentality. Well, guess what? That only works in the movies, and it's a lie.
Yeah.
And I'm not Rambo.
Really, very small Rambo for Karen. If
one of the things that I've learned, when I was in the military and as a military contractor, being in places in the third world, if you want, okay, so when you're in that bug out mode, right, and everybody else is panicking, you have to leave your home. This is one thing I tell a lot of my friends anyway. Go buy a book. It's called The Gray Man Theory. The reason being is because when you're doing a gray man theory is this. Number one, you're able to walk through a crowd of people without attracting attention to yourself, but you're observant of everything around you. Number two, you're not going to be carrying. The idea is that you don't want to be carrying hardly anything on you, okay? Just the basics, essentials, like I have with the get your home bag, right? So that's why you want to have a location already planned ahead of time, whether it's friends or family or maybe little, 1 acre or 2 acre properties that you bought. Even if you buy a place where a house has kind of been abandoned for years and years and it's kind of dilapidated, you have a better chance of surviving there than you would trying to rough it out into the woods, so to speak, right? So go gray man, right? So you go in the gray man mode. You're going to dress like a gray man mode. One of the things I told my daughters is this: you are no longer a girl, you are a boy. And the reason being is because when the world starts to panic, you're going to see a lot of bad people out there, a lot of bad elements, and they're going to be looking to do the utmost harm to the weakest members of society. And so, we had plans on how the girls were going to dress up to look more like a boy. It's just a really simple, easy steps, with hats, hoodies, things that, that kind of neutral colors, gray colors, a pretty neutral color. Same thing with your shoes and boots, But the idea is that you're going to get from point A to point B as fast as you possibly can without with minimal amount of interruptions. But you have to anticipate those interruptions, at some point. And when you go through the mental exercise of it, then I always tell people, go back and watch some of these doomsday movies, because there are some universal truths that come to a lot of those situations. And so mentally you can prepare yourself, but then go out and go through that exercise. I mean, it's like some stupid exercise I've done before where I would dress down and go gray man mode and walk around downtown and see how many people recognize me. I actually did this one time. I put out on Facebook all the people that follow me on Facebook, and I said, I'm going to go gray man downtown Freeport this afternoon. If you see me, snap a photo and upload it to Facebook. And the first person that does this, I'll give them $50. And I would go gray man mode, and I would go and walk through the downtown area. And then by the time I got back home, there was not one person who got an actual photo of me. And it wasn't because they weren't paying attention, because I know they follow my Facebook posts like crazy back then. Because I always did like these little stupid challenges and it kind of involved money. That was kind of an incentive. And so people were kind of looking out for me, and trying to take pictures, but they would never get a full picture of me. It's always kind of a top down picture, but you can't tell that's really me because I'm in gray man mode. So, but it kind of proves the point is, go through the exercise. And after a while, you get more confident as you go along and do this. And that's the best way. That's a recipe for success, But once you get to that, whatever that location is, and you've got that community, and you're working with people, then that's a little different story. But the point is that when people are bugging out, they oftentimes think, well, I'm going to grab all this stuff, my wife, she would say, oh, I'm going to grab all my photo albums, and I would say, oh, this is useless stuff. How about this? We'll duplicate everything. We'll put it in our other locations. That way you have copies. Okay. So the idea is go absolutely nothing. Go gray man mode, and just, just to get home, get your home bag. I've got my firearm. We're out the door. Once we get to our location within less than 30 minutes, then we're right where we need to be. If that's not our permanent location, that's just a halfway point, and we're going to go to our next permanent location. This is where we're going to stop, reassess the situation, listen to communication, and then, then depending on the time of the day too, because if it's nightfall, you don't want to travel at nighttime. That is the most dangerous time to be out on the road or out in the woods, is at nighttime, because you can't see what's in front of you. And I know some guys that have these crazy night vision optics, they have the helmets and the night vision. I said, that's all great and dandy, but not everybody's going to have them, So it's better to, hunker down during night, get up in the morning, take off to your next location once you're there, and then start setting up your security. That's number one. Once you get your layers of security put up, then you can start focusing on kind of getting back to normal, creatures of comfort kind of situation. So
I want to point out something you said earlier about when you leave home, expect that you may never come back there again. That's another aspect of the exercise that I think is probably really good, especially for kids, because people start to get into a home. A house is the home, and that's the one place in life that they're comfortable. And the idea of a fire burning their house down is completely and utterly devastating. Versus, well, okay, that's hard, but we can manage dealing with that. Those of us who have moved around from house to house to house in our lives don't feel that type of deep emotional connection to a house. But for kids, that's the one place they know of that's been safe. And if you're training them to think bigger, it'll be easier for them if there is a time where you do need to leave. Then they're not going to be panicking. I want this and I want that. You left my stuffed animal. What if I need my bed? No, you don't. It's
Man,
okay.
I gotta tell you what, I was like Sergeant Mom. I would have told him, suck it up, Buttercup, be glad you're alive. I hate to say this, but here's the book, My Side of the Mountain. To your point is a good point, but sometimes there's a toughness that's got to be, addressed with children too. My Side of the Mountain was a book that, that I read to my kids when they were little. And it's kind of an adventure of leaving everything and looking at it, changing your mindset to go out in the woods and making a dugout house in a tree and for shelter and such. Just to your point, I don't think parents that pander to their kids are doing them any favors. I guess there comes a point in time where society has told us that to be a good parent, you give in to your kids on every little whim they want, or else they're not good kids. And unfortunately, I think the best parents are, I hate to say it, it was like my dad, ex-military, man. He was like, there was no cutting anybody any slack for anything, that dad energy. And now I think even going into this, to remember that when our wonderful males around us bring on that toxic masculinity and do what God built you to do, because it's a beautiful thing to have a strong leader that doesn't cut anybody any slack and says, get up and move, because you're gonna die if you don't,
Yeah, one of the things I did with my kids, in addition to them going to a public school system, I would teach them, how to hunt, how to fish, survival skills. I was a different kind of dad. I always believed that parents are the primary, responsible for kids' education, right? Then teachers are secondary. So, our youngest kid, we ended up homeschooling her because the education system at the time, it was being run by Obama, just didn't make any sense. Now, this is a book that I actually wrote and got published. And this is one of the best-selling books that's out there as far as when it comes to survival. This actually talks about bugging in and bugging out. Not only the difference, but the chances are you're going to spend more time bugging in than you are going to be bugging out in most situations, because you want to typically stay in your own neighborhood where you know your own people, your own neighbors, and because when you've got to start working with them to try to get through different complex situations, it's a lot easier. So
yeah, this is another link. I'm like putting the links up there that everybody's putting in the private chat for everybody to see.
Propranolol or Inderol is a drug that basically gets rid of all of the anxiety, the panic that some people could feel. Because I could see, in a situation like this where we've been talking about it, we're prepared for it, but somebody that's completely unprepared, typically a young female, could have a panic attack, and you're trying to survive, but you have to deal with a family member or somebody that's with you that's having a panic attack is very difficult. A little Inderal just like completely would take that away. And it doesn't, unlike Valium, benzodiazepines and things that get you high, it does not affect your thinking at all. It just stops that rapid heart rate, the sweating. And a lot of, it's, musicians take it, public speakers, probably a lot of our, people on TV, a lot of our politicians, so they could be cool under pressure. And it really does work. It allows you don't get any of that anxiety, rapid heart rate. So that's something, if you can get a hold of it, it may be beneficial to have.
Is it by prescription?
Yes. Yeah.
It's always interesting looking at the different skill sets of everyone and the different focus that everyone kind of has on what they bring to the table for an emergency situation, because it's all so different, and you get a complementary group of people that know the different skills like that. It really is incredible, rather than trying to just do it all yourself,
Yeah, everybody pray for a Karen that will come around and pick up the pieces after the warriors go in front of her and decimate all nonsense out there,
No,
Okay.
I talked about before, like the scenario training that we had in American Red Cross. I was trained as an instructor as well as just the basic training. And the instructor we had was very good at setting up scenarios. So she had like a car going crooked in the parking lot, and she'd put a baby in the bushes that you wouldn't see. And she would be an actress. She'd have ketchup on her, and she would say, I just, she'd act like she was in a panic, and she'd start screaming about my baby, and you'd have to figure out what was going on. And maybe she was a diabetic. She had an accident. The baby went flying out the window, and you have to find the stuff. Well, she said, okay, there's a scenario down the hallway. And as we started heading down the hallway, we had no idea what we were going to find. And all of a sudden, I find myself alone with the rest of the pack behind me because they were so scared. They didn't even want to go into the room. And it was like, oh, okay, I guess, I found that I might be braver in some situations than other people. And since then, I've had much more training that does prepare me more than a lot of other people. So like at an accident scene, I may be one of those people that goes, okay, scene safety, number 1, number 2, what kind of information can I gather together before I make this phone call to 911 that I'm dialing in my hand right now? How can I do, I'm step by step going through the training so that I can keep myself and other people safe while helping during the situation. And later on, I can process the trauma where I've seen something that I might not remember. And that's a whole other aspect of preparedness, is recognizing signs of trauma and how to address that too, because it'll happen.
So how do you address, you were talking earlier, Karen, about all these movies. It's always somebody like freaking out. Of course, it's some Christian, some Bible believer that gets everyone killed. That's the psyop on everybody. But like people that
because that's what we do, David.
Exactly. But I could see if you're traveling with a group of people or family members and one person is freaking out, it could cause other people to die. It's like, and drownings usually happen like that. You dive in to save somebody and you end up getting killed.
I think for me,
how do you get people focused, calm, relaxed? Anybody have any tips about how to do something like that?
Well, from what I've seen in the movies, you slap them because that's the thing that always works.
Yeah.
but really, I mean, a stern physical, like I said, it can go both ways. If you've got calm, firm hands, think about, for example, autism. The concept of autistics that like to be grabbed Turid Rugas. Isn't she the one that did the cattle? She's autistic, but she learned how to make cattle chutes better so that they don't panic when they're going into the slaughter process and so on. So that she was one of the people who was able to teach people how to understand what autistics need in those scenarios. And dogs that panic, they have a vest. They make a bunch of money on these vests. They're called calming wraps or something like that, anxiety wraps. You wrap your arm around them, hold them firmly and calmly. Donna, you've had some experience with that. If you've got a firm grip and you tell them calmly and firmly, we have this under control. You might have to startle them a little bit to snap them out of the initial panic. But then if you let them know you're in control of something and you can handle it for them, it takes a weight off of their shoulders.
Oh,
Like think about what you would do with a little kid that's panicking.
Yeah.
And you just transport that into the adult mind state.
Oh, that's great advice.
Candy or something like that to interrupt that brain trauma just a little bit, something to get their mind off of give them a pleasurable thing.
Mm-hmm.
And something you can use as kind of a dual purpose thing for that too is that a lot of the weighted blankets that they have for autistic kids, a lot of those weighted blankets tend to be made from recycled lead from retired dental x-ray vests where they have exceeded their useful life for dental x-rays, and so they use them as weights. Well, lead is also a wonderful shielding material for radiation. So it might not be a bad idea to have one of those things around.
It makes a great cup to drink out of. Just kidding.
That's after we slap them right there.
Well, I think in the movie probably the romantic type who slap and then kiss. So that's the sweet thing besides sugar, I guess. You smack them and then you kiss them.
Let's go back to horse training. Okay, I can tell you lots of different scenarios with horses, and it does depend on their what their basic makeup is. And the same thing when you do conflict mediation, which I've done a ton of that in my life, where you bring people that are fighting together and get them talking, get them on the same side of the table and such. You have to find out exactly what it is that started the whole problem. What is it? Are they going for domination? Are they scared of something? Usually for horses, there's only two things. They're either scared. Well, most of the time it's that they're scared. And people, it's the same way. You're seeing fear play out, but you see it play out in different areas. So, for example, we have one stallion, and we had a horse trainer that was absolutely terrified of this stallion. Terrified. He's loud, he's mouthy, and he can be a real pain, okay? Absolutely drop dead gorgeous, the stallion is, right? But mouthy and annoying, right? So the horse trainer was actually very afraid of him. So one day I just decided, all right, buddy, I'm done with this. You're done. And I went in the stall, and the trick with horses, get them to move their feet, because you're establishing who's in control. The same thing with people a little bit. If you can get people to move their feet, they're all of a sudden, it sets them off balance a little bit, and you can get a hold of the control a little bit easier. Okay. So I went in the stall and I was like, we're done with it. And I'm done with it today. I went in there and I started jumping around like a crazy person. And then he's looking at me like, what the living hell? Seriously. And so I got him used to the, not reacting and trying to kick me, because he was trying to get away from my craziness at that point in time. So I just kept it up for a while, and he kind of started decelerating just a little bit because he got used to it. And then I started jumping on him. I'm jumping on him. I'm like jumping on his back. I'm jumping on his neck and such. I'm just jumping around like a crazy person. And all of a sudden, the horse stops, and he looks at me like, you're funny. And after that moment in time, the horse and I have been like best buds. Nobody else can get away with this with him except for me. And I have several horses that are like that with me. I am definitely their favorite because I am definitely the craziest person in the barn, not afraid of them, a horse that outweighs me by, I can't even tell you how much weight. And it established who was in control of the situation. And it wasn't them, because I wasn't going to give up on them until they decided to move their feet and stop with the nonsense and go ahead and kick me. It will end up poorly for you. And, just that kind of an attitude sometimes, but get around people, watch them when they're getting crazy. I've got so many stories of being the craziest person in the room and doing it intentionally, to the point where my daughter is there laughing off to the side until she's got tears in her eyes. And sometimes just that that surprise, it stops everything. In fact, I'll teach you something that's about corporate strategy marketing, what marketing people do. That's my background. Part of it, at any rate, is that if you want to get somebody's attention or change their mind, or you're directing their attention, do something right off the bat that just shocks the hell out of them. I mean, and all of a sudden they have to stop. So it's the same thing with horse trading. Stop, and now they've got to reevaluate what they've seen around them. That's step 2 in the process, is they're evaluating what's going on. And this is actually what a marketing person does. So when you see things, you'll see people do like something that's shock, or they'll tie into emotional bent and such. You better hope that the people that do this have good intentions behind it, because they study human beings and they know how people will react. Okay. Yeah. So they're evaluating, because you've just absolutely broken everything they think is normal in front of them. The third stage is they start making decisions and processing what they're seeing and putting it in some sort of order, because now they feel really out of order, or they've been made to feel a lacking or wanting something. That's what a marketing person will do. That's how they get us to buy product. And then the fourth stage is it is in their head and it is canonized. And it is almost impossible to break them out of that in that scenario. So, for example, if I was public speaking years ago and I knew it was going to be a tough group that's got all kinds of arrogance going and they're not open to new ideas, this sounds crazy, but I would go out and buy a whole bunch of glass vases and put it in a burlap bag. And I take it on a corporate table and just go, bam, before I say one word.
Got their attention.
You got the whole group going, what the hell? I didn't want to have their attention, and we kept going with it. Another time I was speaking in front of a church, and I was asked to speak for Mother's Day on a church. So I show up with a suit. I get up on the nobody knew what I was going to do. Because I never let anybody know what I'm going to do, because it's always whatever God wants me to say at the time. I literally get up on the by the stage up in front, whatever you want to call it, and I start taking clothes off in a church. And the women in the church were sitting there, and several of them were kind of like, oh my gosh, what is happening here? Well, I took my suit off, and underneath it, I had a flannel shirt and jeans, took my shoes off and said, now it's time to get down to being real people.
Oh, nice.
Talking about real things instead of all of this pretended nonsense that people are doing to put on a mask or being what they really aren't. Why don't we just talk as people? And, I broke a few eggs that day. I did some other things that were visible on how the world works. And, there's all these things, but you have to remember when people are in panic, and everybody's in panic, almost everybody all the time, you'll notice that the people that have a higher spiritual quotient are not in panic, and they're not afraid to speak out. They're not afraid to go against they have no fear of man. They're not afraid to piss everybody off and say all the bad words or the things that aren't allowable, even though everybody does it when they walk away from a public venue. You know, it's true.
I've done that. I've done that. We were talking about what would you do. I had a dog that was needing to do a training exercise, and he made a mistake right off the bat because he was way too excited. He was just in a really strong high, and he wasn't using his head. And I didn't know what he had missed, but somebody else told me. So I brought him back, and I took hold of him. I grabbed him by the scruff on each side of his face and looked him right in the eye, and I said something like, "Knock it off." And he just looked up at me like, "Oh." And I said, "Get back to work. Use your nose," because we were doing a scent exercise. And all of a sudden, he's like, "Okay, game on." And he went right back at it. But that was where I think, so I'm not an expert. I'm no behavior expert. I'm no psychiatrist or psychologist, psychoanalyst, neurologist, any of that. But it worked for my dog. To grab him and do that, you know, got in his face and said, "Stop. We're moving on."
It is 10:30.
Get a hold of yourself.
And I have to go because I got a long trip ahead of me today because I'm going to something tonight, and so I need to get ready to go. But I've got the links that you put up there, Shawn, and we can go through some of them very quickly. I know that this is one organization that you believe in, and so trained instructors and such as BSOs and the survival gear, and so we need to retouch on this again. And I'm supposed to be gone next week, though I don't know if I'm going yet or not because there's certain security clearances that have to happen. So we're going to plan on next week, and we'll see what happens because I'm still in the dark about this and where I'm supposed to be. But let's go through this again and do Friday again. And newest member of the team, Shawn Starry, we love you here. This is awesome.
He's the star.
Yes, a star, the starriest of stars. And let's go ahead and do this again next Friday. If I have to change, I'll let everybody know. And I think there's going to be some big surprises in the next week. And then the biggest surprises, I think that if we make it to the 19th before something catastrophic happens or some things that we don't know, I'm actually going to be fairly surprised. But if it's going to be a bumpy ride. There's no two ways about it. And so, y'all have my number and you know how to get a hold of me, 616-430-4410. And I can connect you with a lot of people. My contact list is something that people would, probably kill for, and so that's okay. Nobody can kill me. The only one's going to end my life is God Almighty. I'm already at peace with that. So, and then I get to go home. Woohoo! Surprise.
Donna, there's going to be a snowstorm today, so be careful driving. Okay. Have your survival gear.
Survival gear and a really good pickup with good tires on it.
There you go.
You have to be pulling those people with their stilettos on that don't know how to dress for Michigan. We're in Michigan, people. So at any rate, last words I'm going to give you each. Please hold to it 30 seconds. Karen, David, Shawn, and Ralph.
Oh, just a reminder that we act out of trust and hope and love and kindness and joy and faith and not fear.
David.
Stay prepared. This is the final week, that we thought something would happen. So just be prepared.
Shawn.
Yeah, I think it's important that you keep your wits about you, be very observational of your surroundings and, teach yourself a bunch of different skill sets, books, survival books, different things that you can utilize.
Ralph.
Never prepare out of fear, always prepare out of courage, and know the people around you that have the skills you don't.
There you go. And figure out who the warriors are around you and make sure that you're ready to pick up the carnage when they're done. Because it's a good thing to have those warriors around you that are not going to negotiate with terrorists, traitors, liars, cheats, and thieves. And there's quite a few warriors around us. I'm just saying right there. So let's say a quick prayer, and then we're going to go on to our day. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for everyone here, Karen, David, Ralph, and Shawn, and for all the many people and patriots out there, and your children who love you so very much and are here, not for ourselves, but to serve you here in whatever capacity that you ask us. It doesn't matter what you ask us to do. We are willing to follow you. We're willing to do what you ask us to do. It's your world, your sandbox, and we're here to honor you and to serve you in it, because we're on a work visa here from you. We're definitely on a work visa, and so we're here to work. Just tell us what you need done. Thank you so much for this day and all that you've given us. You're amazing. It's amazing how you provide for us and that you lead us through things, even difficult paths, in order to make substantial changes, to restore things that were broken, and to honor and glorify you in everything that you've done. It's just, you're amazing. And thank you for everything. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. So there you go, boys and girls. Go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I'd like to talk to the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, about this in cowboy boots. We'll see who wears it better. So with that said, everybody, God bless you all. Here, where's Karen with her heart hands? Here, flash Karen just for a minute here. Ding, 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 ding with heart hands. She agrees. God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. It starts here. Mentally prepare. Start praying and asking God for answers, because he will always give it to us. He will never leave us nor forsake us. And prepare your mind, your heart, and perhaps even your surroundings. And we will see you Monday. I'm not sure who's going to be on. For certain, it'll be Vicki Davis with the technocratic communism, technocratic tyranny, going through all of the treaties and such that they've used, and their pretended laws in a pretended government structure, who has usurped the rightful structure as we, the people sitting on the top. We're the boss. They are in fact not. We do not coronate kings. I could talk about this for a long time right now, because I actually wrote a letter to President Trump yesterday. You know what? I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it right now. I am a little annoyed right now with the inauguration. I'm going to say it right now. I think he should get inaugurated on Air Force One, fly around for a little while in a safe place, and not put himself, his family, anybody else on the ground at jeopardy. This is a bad decision. It's way too much money going into this, of taxpayers' money, and it feels like the coronation of a king. We're done with this, and I think that we really need to do what's in the best interest of the United States of America, which is a quiet, private ceremony to, in fact, ensure the safety of President Trump. And any of those people that need to have all the pomp and circumstances are probably big donors that are being thanked for it. And I'd like to call to all of those people that have these events out there. Let's call them all off. Call them all off and take the money that people have donated or paid to that and put it back into the United States of America, into the people of America who are struggling and hurting right now. I'm disgusted with the whole thing. And there you go. I said it publicly. I feel that way. And all the donations, if we can't all go and participate, then nobody should.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I stand with every single American out there. I don't care how you package yourself. I don't care what you think you are or labels that you've given yourself. We stand together as one American family. And what's good for one person needs to be good for everyone. Not pay for access, not pay for all of this stuff. And this is mainly going out to those donors and the big donors that have participated in this, that have been part of the problem. It's time to call a full stop.
Yeah. I'm sick of the billionaires. becoming our politicians.
Which I am not, by the way, which I was billed as. Thank you, the Gateway pundit who lied.
And you didn't get it. You didn't get a position, so
Well, I didn't get a position.
you didn't buy yourself a position in the Trump administration.
That I haven't got a position in anything. I got a position in BNN right now, and so and been brutally attacked. So there you go. It's the way it is. I'm Donna Brandenburg, the nobody, the absolute nobody part of we the people, comfy as hell, sitting right here. I'm comfy. Maybe that's the wrong word to use, but I'm comfortable sitting right here with we the people, doing we the people things, taking back the nation the way it's supposed to be, with each and every one of us being equal. Yep. And there you go. And we'll see you Monday. And we're going to continue on this little ornery stream of I'm sick of the shit. Okay. And I'm calling it out. There we go.
Donna gets more than 30 seconds if she wants it.
Yeah, there you go. I guess because I got the
37.
It's like I got the button like President Trump and mine works. So, all right, stand in line, guys, and we'll see you guys, the rest of you guys Monday. Wish you could see the conversations after we get off. It's going to be quick, though.